After 6 episodes of twists, fake identities, kidnappings, and shocking revelations, A Good Girl's Guide to Murder Season 2 ends on a much darker note than the first season. While Pip manages to uncover the truth behind Jaime Reynolds' disappearance, the ending proves that solving a mystery doesn't always bring justice. At the center of the season is Jaime Reynolds, who suddenly disappears without a trace. His disappearance becomes a major concern because it happens shortly before Max Hastings' trial. Since Jaime is connected to the case and could potentially help expose Max, Pip initially believes someone may have kidnapped him to protect Max. However, as she begins investigating, she realizes that Jaime's disappearance is connected to something far older and far more disturbing. One of the biggest clues involves a mysterious online figure named Layla Mead. Throughout the season, Jaime spends a lot of time communicating with Layla. From the outside, it appears that Jaime has developed a close relationship with a young woman he met online. But as Pip digs deeper, she discovers that Layla Mead is not actually a real person. The entire identity was created and controlled by someone else. The person behind the account is Charlie Green. At first, Charlie seems like just another suspect in the investigation, but the truth is far more complicated. Charlie has spent years searching for a man known publicly as Child Brunswick. To understand why Charlie is obsessed with finding him, the show reveals a horrifying story from the past. Years earlier, a serial killer named Scott Brunswick terrorized multiple communities. Scott was responsible for abducting and murdering numerous victims. What made the case even more disturbing was the involvement of his young son. The child was forced to assist his father during some of the crimes. Because of this connection, the media began referring to him as Child Brunswick. When Scott Brunswick was eventually caught, the child disappeared from public view. Authorities gave him a new identity and tried to help him build a different life away from his father's crimes. However, many people never forgot what happened. Among them was Charlie Green. Charlie's twin sister had been one of Scott Brunswick's victims. Her death destroyed Charlie's family and shaped the rest of his life. As the years passed, Charlie became consumed by the need for answers. He believed Child Brunswick was not simply another victim, but someone who shared responsibility for what happened. Because of that belief, Charlie dedicated years to tracking him down. To accomplish this, Charlie created the fake online identity of Layla Mead. He used the account to gather information and lure people who might unknowingly lead him to Child Brunswick. Eventually, Jaime becomes involved in this search. Without realizing it, he gets closer to the truth than anyone else. As Pip continues investigating, she discovers that Child Brunswick has been living under a completely different name. The person Charlie has been searching for all these years is Stanley Forbes. Stanley initially appears to be an ordinary man living a quiet life. He works as a security guard at the golf club and avoids drawing attention to himself. Most people barely notice him. Yet behind that ordinary appearance is someone carrying decades of guilt, fear, and trauma. The revelation about Stanley changes the entire mystery. Throughout the season, the audience is encouraged to wonder whether Child Brunswick is a monster or another victim. Stanley's story shows that the answer is not simple. As a child, he was manipulated and controlled by his father. He grew up in an environment of fear and abuse. While he was involved in some of Scott Brunswick's crimes, he was also a victim of circumstances he never chose. The tragedy of Stanley's life is that he can never fully escape his past. Even though he spends years trying to live quietly and avoid hurting anyone, the shadow of Scott Brunswick follows him everywhere. Meanwhile, Jaime's disappearance finally begins to make sense. After getting too close to the truth, Jaime encounters Stanley. Terrified that his identity will be exposed, Stanley takes Jaime to his home and prevents him from leaving. Initially, this appears to confirm everyone's worst fears. It looks like Stanley has kidnapped Jaime. However, the reality is more complicated. Stanley does not abduct Jaime because he wants to hurt him. Instead, he becomes convinced that Charlie Green is closing in and that exposing the truth could lead to disaster. Stanley is frightened, desperate, and increasingly paranoid. He believes that keeping Jaime hidden is the safest option, both for himself and potentially for Jaime. As time passes, the relationship between Stanley and Jaime becomes surprisingly unusual. Rather than behaving like a typical kidnapper, Stanley forms a strange connection with Jaime. The two spend time talking, and Jaime gradually learns more about Stanley's past. This creates one of the season's most morally complex situations because Stanley is simultaneously Jaime's captor and a deeply damaged person trying to survive. While Jaime remains missing, Pip continues following every lead she can find. She refuses to give up, even when the investigation becomes increasingly dangerous. Piece by piece, she uncovers the connection between Charlie, Layla Mead, Child Brunswick, and Stanley Forbes. Once Pip finally understands what happened, she organizes a plan to rescue Jaime. Ravi and Connor help her search Stanley's property while Pip focuses on confronting the truth directly. The operation is incredibly risky because nobody knows how Stanley will react when cornered. Fortunately, Jaime is eventually found alive. His rescue provides the answer to the season's central mystery and proves once again that Pip's determination can uncover the truth when everyone else has run out of leads. But unlike the first season, solving the mystery does not bring relief. The most tragic part of the finale arrives after Jaime's rescue. Charlie Green finally comes face to face with Stanley Forbes. For years, Charlie has imagined this moment. He has spent countless hours searching for the person he believes played a role in his sister's death. In Charlie's mind, Stanley represents everything he has hated and feared for years. The problem is that reality is far more complicated than Charlie wants to admit. By the time the confrontation occurs, Pip understands that Stanley is not simply a villain. Stanley is a man who spent his childhood under the control of a monstrous father. He has carried enormous emotional scars for decades. Although he cannot erase what happened, he has spent years trying to live a peaceful life. Charlie cannot accept that perspective. His grief and anger are too powerful. He sees Stanley as guilty regardless of the circumstances. As a result, their confrontation turns violent. Stanley is ultimately killed before he has any real opportunity to move beyond his past. It is a devastating conclusion because Stanley spends most of his life trying to escape the legacy of Scott Brunswick, only to be destroyed by it in the end. For Pip, Stanley's death represents a painful lesson. Throughout her investigations, she usually believes that finding the truth will make things better. Yet Stanley's story demonstrates that some wounds are too deep and some tragedies cannot be fixed simply by exposing the facts. At the same time, another major storyline reaches its conclusion. Throughout the season, Pip remains committed to helping bring Max Hastings to justice. Max's actions have affected numerous lives, and Pip believes the evidence against him is overwhelming. She puts enormous effort into supporting the case and ensuring the truth comes out. However, the legal system ultimately fails her expectations. Despite everything revealed during the investigation, Max is found not guilty. This verdict becomes one of the most frustrating moments of the entire season. Pip watches someone she believes is clearly guilty walk away without punishment. The result completely undermines her faith in the idea that justice always prevails. The contrast between the two main storylines is deliberate. In one case, Pip successfully solves a mystery but cannot save Stanley. In the other, she exposes the truth but cannot stop Max from escaping consequences. Both outcomes force her to confront an uncomfortable reality. The truth matters, but the truth alone does not guarantee justice. By the end of the season, Pip is emotionally exhausted. The confident investigator who once believed every case could be solved and every wrong could be corrected begins questioning her role in these investigations. She starts wondering whether uncovering secrets is actually helping people or simply creating new pain. This emotional transformation becomes one of the most important aspects of the finale. Unlike the first season, which ended with a sense of accomplishment, season 2 leaves Pip deeply changed. She has seen innocent people suffer, watched justice fail, and learned that some mysteries leave permanent scars. The final moments push her into even darker territory. Just when it seems the story is over, Pip receives a threatening message. Someone appears to be watching her. The warning suggests that she is no longer simply an investigator examining other people's lives. Instead, she may have become the target herself. The implication is chilling. For 2 seasons, Pip has been exposing dangerous secrets and confronting people who would prefer those secrets remain hidden. The finale suggests that one of those dangers has finally turned its attention toward her. This ending sets up the events of a potential 3rd season, which would adapt the final novel in the trilogy. In that story, Pip becomes the focus of a terrifying stalking case that threatens both her safety and the safety of the people she loves. The warning she receives at the end of season 2 serves as the first sign that her next mystery will be far more personal than anything she has faced before. In the end, Jaime Reynolds is rescued and reunited with his loved ones. The truth about Layla Mead is uncovered. Charlie Green's years-long search finally reaches its conclusion. The identity of Child Brunswick is revealed, exposing Stanley Forbes' tragic past. Yet Stanley dies before finding peace, and Max Hastings escapes punishment despite the evidence against him. Rather than delivering a neat resolution, the finale leaves viewers with a complicated mix of answers and heartbreak. Pip uncovers the truth once again, but the season proves that truth and justice are not always the same thing. As she stands at the end of another investigation, more isolated and disillusioned than ever before, one thing becomes clear. The greatest danger in her life may still be waiting around the corner.